everybody. Welcome to the MMA Heat podcast. Karyn, Bryant back in Los Angeles here with...
Good to have you back here with Alan Jouban. Good to see you, everyone.
Absolutely.
Good to see you guys, but I'm glad you guys can see us at least.
I know, good to see you. It sucks that we still can't be in person. Damn you, COVID. But yeah, back from Abu Dhabi. Had a good trip over there. There's still 1 week going on over there. People are there for this last week. UFC 254. We'll talk about UFC 254. We'll also obviously talk about Bryant Ortega on the comeback there against the Zombie. But Alan, we're also only about basically like a month out from your fight. So how's it going?
Yeah, it's closing in. I mean, it can't come soon enough, to be honest. I feel very like I don't want to say I'm peaking right now, but I feel very good. Everything is firing on all cylinders. My body feels good. So it's just at this point where you kind of start to second guess. You think, all right, 4 more weeks, 5 more weeks, this many days, and you're like, all right, like when is it going to get here? I don't want anything bad to happen, but right. I try to take any type of negative thoughts and move that out of the way, and just every day you focus on getting better today. But yeah, it's a lot when you go through 9-10 sessions a week, and you have to do another 4 or 5 more weeks. We're getting close. November 21st. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking to see who they filled the spot for that card, because Cody Garbrandt was supposed to be fighting for the belt on that one. That fight's no longer happening. I was hoping that Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier would be put on that card so that the world would be watching and I'd be a part of it.
Right.
That looks like it's not happening in January. But nonetheless, Amanda Nunes will be on the card, and she's a bad woman to fight on the undercard against.
Well, yeah, no, actually, this one is the one that because you're on UFC 255, right?
255. Is it not the Amanda card?
That's got Valentina and Jennifer Maia.
Oh my God, I thought Amanda was on that card. Wait, is Amanda fighting again this year or no?
She's fighting in December. So that one has Alex Perez stepped in for Cody. Unfortunately, it sucks. So
Gotcha.
It is still, Davison is still on the card. So Davison's fighting Alex Perez, and then Valentina's fighting Jennifer Maia on that one.
Gotcha. Valentina's headlining it. So
yeah,
Amanda's fighting on the end of the year card.
Yeah,
the last.
Yeah.
I feel like Amanda fights on that card every year. Am I wrong? She always, it's that card that like it's one of the last fights of the year. John Jones has supposed to headline a couple times, and then something's come up with him, and she's taking a spot, but she's always in that November-December slot.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it'll be good. And also, like, this is one that has Lawler versus Mike Perry and stuff on it, and it's a good card. It's got a lot. Yep. It's got a lot going on there. So, we are excited to see you back in action, though, like before your birthday. And then the cool thing is that you can like celebrate after, right?
I'm gonna be fat. I mean, it's fight week. I get done fighting. You indulge yourself, right?
Yeah.
And then it's my birthday. And then Thanksgiving, like the next day. So we might not have to do we might do an audio podcast the following week.
Right.
We're gonna be enjoying ourselves. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I love it. Well, yeah. So we are back from Fight Island, and it was a great trip. But I was kind of bummed. Listen, I worked 3 great events there, right? But then I was like, I gotta leave before T-City and the Zombie, man. I was like, come on, because I don't know if folks know, because it's been a hot minute since we did UFC Now, but you and Brian and I used to work together sometimes over at UFC Now, and he's such a good dude, and I really was looking forward to seeing him fight, and it's been forever since we've seen him fight. I think even the last time I even saw Brian was just last year in Mexico City. We were hanging out at the hotel a little bit. Like, I think that's even just the last time I saw the dude, you know? But my God, Alan, did this dude level up in the time off or what? I know you were really impressed because I saw you got your tweet on the broadcast.
Thank you, Twitter gods. like I told you, I only tweeted 1,200 times to finally get that one in the last month.
But yeah, go for it. Yeah, I mean, I know you loved his performance. So what about it did you love?
Like you said, Karyn, I loved it. I was impressed by his performance. Brian looked like, we say this all the time. I've got new coaches. I'm learning new things. I'm adding new tools. I'm a new fighter. It's hard to really shake the ground person of who you are, your basis. Brian is a jiu-jitsu guy who has who improved boxing, but he's coming off of a very tough loss when he lost to Max Holloway. He was stopped for the first time in his career. He was banged up for the first time in his career, and he's out for a very long time, one of the first times in his career. Right. How is Brian going to come back? And he said he kind of cleaned house. He got rid of some people, some old, some new. I was really surprised. I was looking for his old boxing coach, somebody who kind of was with him for a long time, and he had this kind of connection with, because they kind of had this connection. They were both somewhat from the streets. He took them in, helped him out, got him to where he was. I didn't see him in his corner. I apologize. I'm forgetting his name. I think it's James or something, but he wasn't there. A new team. With that said, Karyn, Brian looked excellent. Brian looked good everywhere. And I mean boxing, kicking. You saw his spinning back elbow that he landed once, flush, almost the second time at the last second of the round. His feints to the wrestling, his wrestling on the cage, his jiu-jitsu was always going to be there.
Right.
But everything else seemed to absolutely level up in this fight. But more importantly, I saw Brian fighting from the southpaw stance. He would switch to orthodox. He would switch back to southpaw. He was doing everything that I'm working right now, the subtleties of boxing, where it's not just throw a combo and get out, but it's feint. It's hands up at all times. And I noticed that Brian was very, very disciplined in there. Yeah. At times he would throw feints, throw combos, but his left hand was glued to his face. And I could tell that was something that they really worked with his boxing coach, because Brian was a guy that had sharp offense. But when he fought Max Holloway found those small cracks, those small openings in transitions between combos, and Max was able to capitalize on those parts. This fight was nothing like that. It looked completely different. Brian had his hands up the entire time. Every time Korean Zombie would try to counter or get him, Brian had his hands up. He was angling out. He was throwing feints. He was level changing. Yeah. He threw Korean Zombie completely off his fight. I will say Korean Zombie, he had his moments with those uppercuts against the cage. He landed some good combos as well. But he seemed to also never get off from the opening bell. It felt like Korean Zombie wasn't able to get his rhythm in there, and Brian was able to somewhat exploit it. He never let Korean Zombie find his rhythm. When Korean Zombie would land those 2 or 3 or 4 punches, Brian would do the right thing. He would circle off the cage, reset, and get his offense going, not letting Korean Zombie build up that momentum against him. But as you said it, Brian looked great, and I got to say, this is the best Brian Ortega I've ever seen in his entire career, and it's a pleasure to see it.
Yeah, I thought he looked awesome. I'm trying to remember exactly what time it started. I know as we were on the island, the fights were progressively going to be earlier in the night for locally in Abu Dhabi, building up to, next week for Khabib. It's going to be, prime evening time for Abu Dhabi, since he's such a big draw there.
Is that what it was? Oh, because they're going to be early for Khabib.
Yeah, so that's why the fight for Khabib over here, when we watch, it's going to be early in the day, because like I said, the first one that we did with Adesanya, that was like, I think the one that we started the latest. I think the first fight was like 3 a.m. or something. And then the next fight I worked, I think the first fight was maybe 1 o'clock or 1:30, for the next ones or whatever. And so they were going to get progressively earlier on the Abu Dhabi clock. But that said, it was still kind of a funky time. So I'm not trying to make excuses for the Zombie, but I do know that some people have a hard time performing over there in that time frame. If he didn't get on the clock over there, if he didn't spend the week living that reverse kind of vampire timing, which a lot of people have done, it's challenging, so I don't, like I said, I have no idea what it was. It was just Brian looked phenomenal, but yep. I do know that might have been something that could have affected the Zombie.
That's a great point to bring up, Karyn. I mean, you talk about Paulo Costa versus Stylebender. That fight, Paulo Costa not making excuses, because Stylebender was unbeatable that night. But Paulo Costa did not look like himself either. He could not get off and find his rhythm. Right. He said he did not sleep much the night before. Right. It's a gamble. When you're flying and fighting in Abu Dhabi, and you're flying 16, 17 hours there, and you're in a reverse time zone, you're fighting at 3, 4 a.m. in the morning, it's very much a gamble. How well are you going to get your body adjusting to this new time set? And how well are you going to sleep? Most fighters don't sleep well the night before
I would think
a fight anyway. You're used to getting 6, 7, 8 hours during camp, and all of a sudden, the biggest night of your life, you're getting 4 or 5 hours, and the anxiety sets in, and now your body's feeling weird, and you're feeling kind of loopy, and you have to just home it all in. Right. But when you're doing that across the world in a different everything, the energy, the time, the temperature, 100-something degrees out there, it can play tricks on your body. And it kind of seemed like, again, it's kind of a scenario like Stylebender. Right. I don't think that Korean Zombie found his rhythm, and I think it could be partly due to the sleeping or the time change. Maybe the fight would have been a little bit different if it had been in Vegas or somewhere else. Right. But I don't think Brian Ortega was losing at night. He looked unbeatable in my mind.
Yeah, he really did. And to your point about the coaching, it's like, all the guys that were in that Modelo ad, he basically, shifted away from them. Now, Rener Gracie is still in his corner, but Rener tested positive, so Rener wasn't there physically in his corner. And I know that leading up to it, a lot of people were kind of thinking like, oh man, is that going to really stress Bryant out? Because like, you know, one of his main dudes isn't here. And obviously it didn't seem to shake his composure at all. You know, I think it was kind of funny too, like, we're saying it's Bryant Ortega 2.0, that the shaved head that he did for, you know, to give to Locks of Love and the charity. It was like a rebirth of him, right? Like he's bald, like it's started over. And I know a lot of people freaked out because a lot of people love Bryant and his hair. But I thought he looked like kind of a badass there, and it was like a whole reinvention, right? Like stripping everything down to the beginning and starting over. I too was really impressed, not only just with the skill set that he showed, but just like you said, the composure there, every part of it, he seemed so in control. And in the past, I feel like you've seen him sometimes get frustrated, or maybe you could see, I don't know, maybe also because he was, you know, in that fight with Max, that was just a really, really, really hard fight too. But I never thought I saw a Bryant that didn't look like he was in control of the situation and or of everything. Checking this kick, doing that, like you said, covering this up, going here, landing that elbow, like the fact that he almost landed that sort of reverse up elbow that the zombie landed on Yair, I was like, oh man, that's cool. Like, that's cool that he's doing that. I really love that. I think that's one thing I even tweeted. I was like, the Hellbows in this fight. I loved it. I love Hellbows. But yeah, I thought Bryant just looked so composed with his stance, everything. Also, maybe just the way that his stance, he looked a little different. I guess I hadn't noticed before how long his legs are. He definitely seemed... Like, I was like, oh man, like, you know, obviously he didn't change his body in that way, but I was like, oh, he looked different to me. And maybe it's just because I haven't seen him in a while, but he physically looked different, and everything about the way he operated in there did seem different.
His stance looked sharper. Like, what do they call it in boxing? More bladed, where you're not as square, but you're more of a singular blade, a sharper edge. He made that adjustment. I agree. His legs looked longer in the fight. Bryant has always been a good striker. Yeah. But we hadn't seen him on this level, obviously. But before this, Bryant had kind of a macho, a Mexican-style fighter. I'll stand in the pocket with you. I'll punch you. I'll keep going. That Mexican pride that you see in some of these Mexican boxers and fighters. This fighter looked like a sharp fighter that said, I'm going to hit and not get hit, and then I'm going to make the correct adjustment. I'm going to hold myself accountable. I'm going to keep my hands high. I'm going to circle out of danger. I'm going to pick you apart from far away. And then I'm going to add in what coaches always want you to do. Touch the leg now and then. Add the level changes. Throw that one shoot that one takedown. And even if you don't get it, now it's in the back of his mind. Right. He did everything on the list. It was a perfect checklist fight for Bryant Ortega. This is one of those fights that the coaches go back and they have a toast with each other and go, man, we did everything perfect this fight. I mean, it was a beautiful fight. Looking at his corner, again, I didn't know everything about his corner until we watched the fight, and the commentary was kind of telling us about it. But I recognized, I think his name is Jason Park. He's the kind of bigger Asian guy. Yep. And he is a Muay Thai coach. He's actually with Anderson Silva this camp, who's going to be fighting very soon. So you'll see him in Anderson's corner. I think it was also Tiki was in there as well.
Yeah, Tiki's his manager. Yep.
Oh, Tiki's the manager. And Tiki's also... he coaches him as well, right? Like
I mean, Tiki's been around. He fought himself too. I mean, Tiki works with Dominic Reyes as well. Tiki's been around forever.
What I'm getting at is, I thought Bryant looked super sharp, and I thought his Muay Thai looked really good. But I thought the subtleties, which seem like they come from the roots of boxing, the hands always being up, the head movement, the angle changers. You don't see that much angle changes, hands always up in Muay Thai. It's more about sharp kicks. But the subtleties that he added in his game, I feel like he brought in a very good boxing coach, and they cracked the whip on him constantly, while he also added in the kicks as well and the spinning back elbows and all these fun nuances to his game. But it was fun for me to watch, because the way that he fought is how I'm training right now. And that's how I would like my fight to look, where I'm bleeding you out, and then looking for the kill later on. And Bryant, he did it to perfection in this fight.
Yeah, he looked great, and I need to look it up because, of course, once you start getting in there a few rounds, you're like, what's Ortega versus Volkanovski going to look like, right? And
Yeah.
and I think that's when I started looking at Brian's legs, when I was like, oh shoot, yeah, like his legs look so much longer, because I know Alex isn't. I think Alex is what, maybe 5'6" or something. I need to look it up. He does, I think Alex actually has pretty long arms. So it's not a guarantee that Brian is going to have a reach advantage on him. But I did start looking at the way Brian was, in his stance, the way he was, and I was thinking, wow, this guy's going to be, not only literally and figuratively a big problem for Volkanovski, because I thought I don't know, something about it, but if he uses those legs against Volkanovski, like I said, it could be, I think it's going to be a great fight. Obviously, I would imagine Brian would be next, right?
Yeah, and it looks like Volkanovski was open to it. So I was happy to see that.
Right.
Brian was very humble when they kind of mentioned that he might be getting the title shot next. So often we've seen fighters that have the bad blood, and I'm not trying to put a spotlight on Stylebender the way that he handled his grudge match.
Right.
But there was no love at the end of the fight, even though Stylebender was able to dominate his fight against Boachinha. You come into this fight, and Korean Zombie and Brian Ortega, they had a history together. They had a beef together. Brian and him went back and forth a couple times. Brian obviously is known because he slapped one of his friends.
Right.
It actually hurt Brian, his kind of pretty boy image where he was the face of Modelo and all these other things. He started getting some backlash, and you could see the apology coming the next day. I'm sure his management got on him.
Right.
You started kind of seeing the bad boy come out of Brian, and we didn't know who we were going to see in this fight. Are we going to see Brian that's kind of the bad boy and that holds a grudge, or are we going to see Brian the martial artist? And even though you saw that toughness in Brian afterward, where he wasn't holding back on any F-bombs or anything, he was speaking, he was keeping it real with everybody on the audience. But the respect that was shown after with him and Korean Zombie, I love seeing it. I love Korean Zombie was very playful. He's a good guy. You could tell Korean Zombie, he could have had some beef. He went and slapped Brian, making a joke about what happened with his friend. They hugged, they bowed to one another. It was very humbling. It was very nice to watch, and I love seeing that. We could be at battle and be at war, but once you've experienced war with someone, what more is left? What more is left? I always think about my fight with Mike Perry. When our fight was done, we didn't look at each other, and I was waiting for him to be like, good fight, and then I was gonna reciprocate it, but he never did, and I was too proud to be the first to do it. But looking back, I wish that we would have just said, man, it was a pleasure going to war with you, brother. And so it was good to see guys like this that had much more beef and things in the past go and water under their bridge now. So I was happy to see Brian do that and step up.
Yeah, I agree, because I noticed that even from the beginning with the touch of the gloves, because there was so much beef between them, and they're like, okay, you can touch gloves if you want, and Brian kind of held his up first, and he went like this, and then the Zombie, it was kind of like a 1/1000, and then the Zombie put his up a little bit, and then Brian was like, all right, cool, and so they touched gloves, and I was like, oh.
Now they're gonna punch each other in the face.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm glad they did. I really was glad they did. Okay, so I looked it up. So Volkanovski, I was wrong. He's 5'6". I thought I said 5'8". He's 5'6".
No, you said 5'6", I think.
Yeah, Volkanovski is 5'6". They say his reach is 71.5 inches.
Good reach.
Yeah, so we'll see if and so 71.5 inches, and then let me see what Ortega's is, because I am a little bit curious about it. So Ortega's is 69 inch reach. So actually, Volkanovski. I know he's got long arms. So he's got so Volkanovski will actually have a reach advantage, but Brian will have Brian is 5'8", so he's got a height advantage, and I think a leg reach advantage.
Yeah, for sure.
But so it'll be interesting, because if Volkanovski's coming in with the arm, I mean, it'll be interesting if that fight too, if there are takedowns, right? Because this fight was all stand up against the Zombie, right? I know Brian was
got some short takedowns. He wasn't really able to hold the Zombie down.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see if Brian shows up the way that he showed up for the Korean Zombie. Volkanovski had better show up the way that he fought Max in the first meeting rather than the second meeting, because the first meeting I thought Volkanovski was unbeatable. He was so quick to close the distance and throw those powerful leg kicks, and throw so quick with the punches and the kicks. in and out of range, in and out of range. Max had no answer for it. Max made that adjustment on a Zoom training camp.
Yeah.
You know, it was one of those fights where it was up in the air. Who really
I
won
thought
that
Max
fight?
won the second one, but
I kind of thought so too, but it was a very closely
very close. No disrespect to Alex either. Yeah.
Right. But it was a close fight, and you could see that Max made those adjustments to tighten things up, and he was able to have success in the second meeting. So Bryant 2.0 against Volkanovski has to show up the way they did in the first meeting against Bryant 2.0.
Yeah. Well,
Bryant
yeah.
2.0.
I'm just
it's coin phrase.
Exactly. I'm glad T-City is back. You know, I'm just glad. And like I said, you know, it sucks that we haven't been able to do UFC now for a while. Because he's such a good dude, but I always had fun with you. I mean, you know, it was a little rough being the third prettiest person on the set that day, but
yeah, well, if he comes back 2.0, then, you know, we might have a better advantage against him, you know, because Brian said, I missed my prettiness, but he had to do what he had to do.
Right. Well, speaking of pretty, your little sister Jessica Andrade fought as well in the co-main event. I actually think it's hilarious because you guys kind of do look like you could be related. I think it's funny. Sure. She's even rocking your same haircut or whatever almost. Yeah. She's such a cool girl, and she's such a badass fighter. So now she is in her third weight class. I believe, I think she's the first woman to win in 3 different weight classes, I think they were saying. Because what's crazy is she started out as a bantam. She's teeny tiny. And so then she dropped all the way down to straw weight, obviously became the champion there, and then is now coming up as a flyweight. And so she took out Katlyn Chookagian, who was the number 1 contender, who had beaten Antonina Shevchenko, who is tall and lank. You know, she like their bodies were, you know, are totally opposite. But Katlyn is a tough woman. But I did think going into this fight that Jessica would win, mostly because I think she's just so powerful. And you see that in her strength compared to other girls, I think is just totally next level. And obviously it takes more than just strength to win a fight, but I just felt like if this woman connects on Katlyn's jaw or connects anywhere, she's going to feel it. Then of course we saw it was the body shots. You just saw Katlyn was like, oh no, like, and she's like backed up, and I thought she was going to hurl, you know what I mean? And then when Jessica went in for the kill with that second body shot, like I always used to compare her to John Lineker anyway, you know what I mean? Just like square up and throw down, and I freaking love that about Jessica. And so to win it with body shots like that, I just thought was awesome.
It was almost a delayed reaction. It was very odd because the body shot that initially started it, when Jessica Andrade had her back kind of against the cage, she threw it in. It was a bit of a glancing blow. It was a glancing blow, and it wasn't really on the liver side. Right. But body shots, they find a way. You get hit in the right spot, and it's also not just the right spot, but it's where you inhaling or exhaling. When you're not flexed up and you're trying to take in a deep breath, and that glancing shot comes by, and it hits something in the organs, and that rush comes into you. And it just feels like you're dying or something. It feels like something inside you was badly wrong. And you can see that on her face. She kind of did a 360. She turned her back, jumped up in the air, and then she was able to recompose herself. But as you said, Andrade, she's got so much experience. And that was going to be the key word for me. Yeah. When I saw this matchup, I was thinking Andrade is the stronger girl. Katlyn's the taller girl. But Andrade has been in there with so many people for so long. She got that experience. I feel like she's just going to have a tighter game. And she's just go, go, go. She's always very consistent, like 80% the entire way, except for when she lost the belt. But other than that, she's very consistent with them. I'm going to pressure you. I'm going to try to bully you. I'm going to come forward with my combos. But she did just that, though. She landed that body shot. She smelled blood in the water. She followed up with another big body shot. Beautiful win. I think she got a $50,000 bonus for that. That's an incredible body shot. But I think the deserving girl was going to get the win regardless, body shot or not. Jessica Andrade has always been the real deal.
Well, yeah, and partly maybe also the body shots landed or were so effective because Katlyn is so tall and lean in the middle. You know what I mean? It's not like she has anything protection wise. She's very lean, you know, to be that tall and make 125. So, you can kind of look at that and be like, yeah, I guess that would be a vulnerability there. And with Jessica being so much shorter, that's like right there. Like it's just all day, like available for her right there. So, I think it's going to be interesting. I know she was calling for a fight with Valentina. Obviously, Valentina is fighting on your card against Jennifer Maia, which is going to be great. You know, I'm a massive Valentina fan, so to see her versus Jessica would kind of hurt my heart a little bit. I'm not looking past Jennifer Maia, but I'm saying if we ever did see Valentina versus Jessica, I think that would be really, really exciting. With Valentina being such a good counterpuncher and all that, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Valentina's going to be a hard one. I feel like I've been wrong lately, you know, with some of these picks. It's hard these days in picking in the UFC, but Valentina, I mean, she is this one girl that
I don't pick against her, to be honest with you.
Anybody as good in every area, as fast in every area. Right. I mean, the pace that everything she does is so good. It's gonna be tough.
Yeah, I don't know that I've picked against her in the last I don't know how many years. I'm like, Valentina's a machine.
Just against Amanda maybe, but after that,
right. Yeah.
She's been dominant.
Yeah, no, she's just incredible. So yeah, overall there were some fun fights. I'm trying to think if there was another one that kind of really stood out to me, but those were the ones that I found just kind of the most exciting the other day, right? Because I'm thinking, yeah.
I mean, there was that Crute fight.
Oh yeah, what a knockout!
Yeah, I think he got the bonus on that as well. Landed that, you know, you could see from the get-go, the start of the bell, Crute was sitting down on his punches. Where his opponent was very mobile, which is sometimes when you see guys very stationary, I start to pick the mobile guy because then he's more fluid and he's in and out. But he was trying to land that walk-in switch kick where you kind of he had his hands down and he took 2 steps in to land that switch kick. Crute, on the other hand, he wasn't backing up and going forward. He was sitting down on his punches the entire fight. So when he saw that, he hit the ignition switch and started his counter punch, and it just landed perfectly. Beautiful shot, put him out. You know, he was kind of humble as well after. Went and tried to help him and almost fell out of the cage when they opened it up. But I think he got his bonus for that and he was deserving of it.
Yeah, that one I definitely tweeted out, like, looks like Crute's going home with some extra money. Like, it was just, it was perfect. Like, that was quite the knockout. Yeah, that was quite the knockout. Well, as I mentioned, in Fight Island there, the fights have been moving up in time-wise because the man, the myth, the legend, Khabib Nurmagomedov is fighting on Saturday. He is defending against Justin Gaethje, and, you know, they've been hustling over there, too, to get H.E.A.T Arena open. They have a big, you know, stadium, everything now that we were hoping to try to get into while they're on Fight Island, but some of the stuff just wasn't quite ready yet. So the fights have been in Flash Forum, but I know they really want to try to get it ready for this weekend. There was talk that they might even sell maybe like 2,000 tickets or something like that, because obviously he is such a huge draw, and such a big deal, and such an incredibly dominant fighter. I don't know what's going to happen because, to be honest with you, Justin Gaethje has just enough crazy and just enough skill. Like, how can I phrase this? I guess I wouldn't be surprised if Justin pulled it off. I guess how I would phrase it. I don't know if he will, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did.
I think a lot of people have the same feeling, and a lot of former opponents of both of these two fighters, I think, would feel the same way. I think if you ask Eddie Alvarez or Dustin Poirier or maybe even a Conor McGregor, they might say that we could see a new champion this week, and the possibility is there. It's so up in the air. I mean, when it comes to Khabib, it's like, you know the game. Can you stop it? Can you stop it? Plain and simple. I don't know if you could stop it.
I don't know.
When it comes to Justin Gaethje, you said it. The right amount of crazy. Let's dig into that. The right amount of crazy, meaning I'll come forward and throw shots one after another while walking forward and possibly give up a takedown, but I'm going to come and try to take your head off. And we've seen in the past that is where Khabib has had the most trouble. When people weren't so scared of the takedown. I actually did a show with Brendan Schaub the other day, and I was trying to explain this. I didn't explain it very well, so this is a great opportunity for our viewers. Even though the Dustin Poirier fight, some people looked at it and said, oh, Dustin didn't do as well as we thought he was going to do. Yeah. He had some big moments in that fight that people kind of forget about. When Dustin walked forward and he landed that big right hand on Khabib, and Khabib was kind of shocked and kind of wild. I don't know if he was stunned or whatever, but he was taken off guard, and Dustin was pressing forward, landing 2 or 3 more shots. I thought it could be the beginning of the end, because that's how Dustin has his moments leading up to the finishes. When he does a walking 1-2 and then he steps into orthodox position, that's when Dustin's at his best sometimes. And we were starting to see that Khabib was able to regain his composure, take him down.
Yeah.
And then also we saw Dustin Poirier with the very close guillotine in there.
Yes.
Now, I don't think Justin Gaethje is really as much of a guillotine guy as some of these other fighters, but I do think if he walks forward with that third or fourth or fifth punch, that one or two of those are going to land, and Justin Gaethje has power enough to take down Khabib. So it'll be interesting. It's kind of a gamble. What is going to happen first? The big shot. I don't think it'll be a one-punch knockout, but I think if Justin lands, Justin could hurt Khabib and have him starting to shoot desperately, and then his wrestling experience will come into play. Then he'll be able to sprawl on a hurt Khabib. But I don't think Justin will be able to fully defend Khabib's pressure when he puts him on the cage and he goes to take him down over and over again. That relentless pressure, he's going to get him down eventually.
Well, what's also something worth remembering, though, is that Justin Gaethje was actually a state champion wrestler in Arizona, and is quite a decorated wrestler. And I remember when I first started to get to know him, when he was, he'd come to the desk and we're covering his fights. And we kept talking to him about the fact that he was a wrestler that never wrestled, right? Because all you saw from Justin were the highlights, the knockouts, and all this stuff. And I think we were in, I'm pretty sure it was a fight in Glendale, in Arizona, where we were talking to him about it, and we're like, dude, you've actually won all kinds of things here. And he's like, yeah, but, I don't really wrestle that much because the fans don't like that as much. And, he likes to deliver, exciting fights for the fans. But then we did see in the fight with Tony Ferguson that he was definitely more composed, right? And you could tell that Justin was like, okay, yeah, this is for the interim title fight. Like, I'm not going to be as reckless as I can, I've been in the past. Maybe, Tony is so dangerous. I thought we just saw a Justin that was obviously more mature and just, took a smarter fight in that one. So yeah. I do think that as good as Khabib is, as dominant as Khabib is, and as powerful as he is in his wrestling, I don't know if Justin will be as overwhelmed as other people have been, you know what I mean, with the wrestling. Although I will say this, Justin, I don't think he's ever missed weight, right? I don't think so at all. He's not a big dude, and we know that Khabib has a harder time making the weight. So that's one thing that I think could be a factor going against sort of plus and minus, right? As long as Khabib makes the weight, on fight night, he's going to be big and powerful and strong. And I do think he's going to have that advantage over Justin. But what's he going to have to go through to make that weight? Whereas I don't think Justin suffers nearly as hard to make that weight. Justin's training at elevation, in Colorado there. He's got, he has a lot of good things going for him. And like I said, Khabib is amazing. And it's so funny with his fans. And maybe you feel this too, he's incredible. And no matter what you say about Khabib, about how incredible he is, hear my words, folks. He is incredible. I'll get people all the time being like, man, you're such a Khabib hater. I'm like his fans are so rabid. I love that his fans are that dedicated to him. But it's like Khabib fans don't ever, they will not accept anything other than all praise to Khabib. I think it's kind of funny to me. But he is absolutely incredible. But he is still human. And I do think that if somebody pulls it off, Justin Gaethje could be the dude to do it.
He could very much be the guy. You mentioned that he trains at elevation as well. Yeah. That could be a big thing for him because Khabib seems to tire everyone down. He's going to get a takedown eventually. He's going to hold you down. He's going to ground and pound you. He's not lazy. He also, and I don't want to go from lazy to a transition to Usman, but he doesn't do the stand-up, push pressure against the cage style that somebody like Usman, who's a dominant wrestler, does as well. Khabib pressures you in the cage and immediately starts looking to trip, double underhook, sweep. He's got so many different pathways that he goes, but he looks to get you down and then Pakistani handcuff you and ground and pound you or stay on top of you. But he looks to work, and that's the most tiring. It's when somebody's holding you in the cage against your will, it sucks because you're losing the fight, but it's not draining you. What drains you is when they take you down, you get back up. They take you down, you get back up, and they handcuff an arm, and they start punching you over and over. That is taxing. So Justin will have the cardio advantage. Well, cardio advantage for most oppositions that Khabib has faced because he trains at altitude. Biting that, like we said, both guys need to get a good night's sleep. I hope they get acclimated to the time change, get some rest. Because if we go into a 25-minute fight where there's takedowns the entire fight and there's these mad scrambles, and one guy didn't sleep the night before, we could see one of these lopsided fights that we've been seeing. And I sure hope not.
Yeah, well, Khabib's already been there for a while. He's been in Dubai, which is just about an hour and a half drive or so from Abu Dhabi. So I think he'll be fine. And like I said, this one, I believe, they'll be fighting at just sort of like 9:45 p.m. I think this one is a local time, sort of regular pay-per-view type thing, because he is such a draw. There'll be most likely royalty there. There'll be, you know what I mean? It's gonna be a big deal, like I said, which is why I know they're really trying to finish the arena. So there's so much going for Khabib that obviously he'll have the support of the, those are his people. He will feel the support, a lot of Muslim support, a lot of, they love him over there. Like I said, I was over there for a few weeks, and it's just so much talk about Khabib. But Justin can go in there and be spoiler. It is different too. Even if it is over in the arena, he'll still be able to hear his coaches really, really well, because it will still be very quiet compared to other kind of events. I don't know. And Justin, once he came to the UFC, he was on a mission. Remember, he threw the interim belt down because he's waiting for the real one and all this. I mean, he's so motivated, so driven. So yeah, I look at it. Could definitely be Ann Still. It definitely could be Ann Still. And everything that Khabib has ever done before makes you think it's gonna be Ann Still, but you just never know.
Styles make fights. We say it all the time. Styles make fights, and he's the perfect stylistic opponent for Khabib. So it's going to be it's who's the better man that night. But this is probably stylistically his toughest opponent for sure.
Yeah, I think it's going to be incredible. But also on the card, somebody I'm a big fan of, Robert Whittaker, is back on Fight Island. Last time we saw him there, I worked that fight where he beat Darren Till. This time out, he's facing Jared Cannonier. Jared Cannonier, formerly a heavyweight. Jared Cannonier, formerly a light heavyweight. Jared Cannonier crushing things at middleweight. Last time we saw him, he beat Jack Hermansson. We were over in Copenhagen, I think it was, and he just silenced that place. Jack being a relative local, being based up there in Sweden. And so it was kind of crazy for him to go in there and just like quiet that crowd. Jared is an interesting dude. He walks around, he carries a lot of crystals. He wears some on his thing. He's an interesting dude.
Yeah.
But he's also very, very dangerous here, and he's a person that I think has been kind of underestimated. He doesn't have a flashy social media presence. He's not this, he's not that. Whittaker, obviously being a former champion, I think has a lot more sort of public support and a lot more kind of going into this. I haven't looked at the odds on it yet. But to me, after Whittaker beat, just being the champion that he was, but beating Yoel Romero a couple times, even on a jacked up knee and all this, I actually do find it hard to pick against Robert Whittaker in any fight still to this day. I just think he's just too good. So I don't know.
This is a weird one for me. Okay, so let me lay down a little bit of information, and then I'll figure out what my point of it was. But as you said, we got Robert Whittaker, former champion. When you look up Robert Whittaker's name, all you see is green, and that's W's, wins.
Right.
For the man to have so many wins, except from that knockout loss to Israel Adesanya, I mean, he's on a 9-10 fight win streak or something at some point as the champion in the division. He's the names to beat Yoel Romero twice on a knee, and some of the names that he's beaten. That Darren Till fight, the way that he managed that nervous energy that Darren Till brings in the cage.
So many feints and fakes and oh my God, yeah.
It's hard to pick against him, as you said. I think he's a bit more of a dynamic, experienced fighter than Jared Cannonier. On the other side of the coin, Jared Cannonier, I've always liked this guy since I saw him day one. He was a very fast, explosive man.
Yeah.
When you look at his losses, Jared Cannonier's losses, you just mentioned it. He fought at heavyweight against Sean Jordan, the big LSU, like a huge man.
Huge.
That was his first loss in the UFC. His other two losses were at light heavyweight against the current champion right now, Jan, and then also the Jan's former opponent, Dominic Reyes.
Right.
Those are the guys that he's been fighting, and those are the people that he has lost to. Now he's at middleweight, and he's explosive, and he's found his right weight class, and he's a very dangerous striker. But at the end of all that tale that I just told you, you've got to go back to the experience dynamic, experienced former champion in Whittaker and say he's going to find a way to pull this out, because that's what champions do. They face adversity, they make adjustments, they make changes, they face the explosive guy, they face the bigger guy. That's what champions, they have to face everybody. With Jared Cannonier has faced tremendous opposition in heavyweights, light heavyweights, but he hasn't had to diversify his opponents as much as Robert Whittaker has. And so I've got to lean towards Whittaker in this one. But the other thing, before I hand it off to you, Karyn, that kind of blows my mind is how sure Izzy was that Jared was going to get this fight.
Right.
Izzy pretty much said, once Jared Cannonier gets that W, you're the next guy in line. Right. He called his shot, and I feel like Israel sees something in these two fighters that we're not quite seeing, or that's either he's seeing something that we don't see, or this is the fight that he would like to happen.
Right.
But I can't distinguish between the two, but it throws me off. It throws me off how confident Izzy was, to be honest.
Yeah, and Israel beat Whittaker in the second round, I believe it was. Which yeah, I mean, maybe it's that he's saying that because he wants to fight Jared, and he, like you said, it's a mind game thing, and maybe he actually thinks Jared would be an easier fight than fighting Whittaker again for a second time. I don't know. You know, Israel is incredibly confident, and he should be, because he's incredible. So, I'm not really sure what's behind that, or if there's some kind of local animosity they have, you know, maybe he has with Whittaker, like, who knows? I don't know if they have like a backstory, you know, between them, other than when they fought and stuff. I'm not sure. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know, but Jared is like, he's the guy that everybody underestimates, right, in these fights, and then he comes out and he wins. So it's totally possible. It's just really, all of it is because of, like you were saying, the strength of the schedule that Robert Whittaker has had, and all the incredible wins that he has had, the durability he's shown, the heart that he's shown, all of his composure, even with, like a completely jacked up knee, he's still in there doing, whatever, let's just go. Like, you know, and I will say that when I saw him in July on Fight Island, in our fighter meetings, he was talking a lot about the time that he had taken off and how he fell in love with the game again. And the whole point was, before, he had gotten burnt out, you know, he was doing all these defenses and he was fighting frequently and he had these injuries and recovering, and then he got, you know, remember he had, what was it, the appendicitis thing or whatever, right? Yeah. Remember? Right. So his body had taken a lot of wear and tear over some time. And he had said to us, like, he's like, I didn't even want to train anymore. He said, I didn't even have a days off. He's like, it's basically like, it was 7 days a week pretty much for like all this time. And he was just burnt out. And so he didn't want to train for the longest time. And then when he did start training, the first thing he did was start lifting weights and getting like swole. And like, he was just kind of doing stuff he wanted to do for fun. And then he got back into the training, and then he fell back in love with the sport. So I guess the long point to this is, he's a man who's in love with his job again. And he was already amazing at that job. And then to fall back in love with that job, to beat Darren Till like that, to come back, like, I think it's the renaissance for Robert Whittaker here. And I feel like he has everything going for him to win this fight, and then to be right back up there for another title shot.
It might be his time again. Yeah. No, I'm with you on that one. I think he's going to be tough to beat, but Jared Cannonier is a very dangerous guy. Like I said, I always root for Jared Cannonier.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Great guy. But when I look at the schedule, when you look at the 8-9 victories that Robert had as a champion, I don't see Jared being able to match that to get that many wins against that tough quality opposition.
Right.
But styles make fights, as we said numerous times in his show, and he might be the right guy that night. But yeah, it's gonna be a tough one.
Yeah, it is going to be a tough one. Also, Big Walt Harris is back in action against Volkov, right? And that's who you have. Is Kenny still training Volkov? I know Kenny Johnson, Bolt Wrestling, was training him sometimes, right?
Yeah, you know, it's tough because Volkov, I think he lives in Russia. I'm not sure where he lives, but he normally comes into town, and Kenny will link up with him the week of fight week, and they would try to cram in as much stuff. And as you can see, it doesn't always pay off. It's not enough time to do everything. So I'm not sure if Kenny. Kenny's here. Kenny would be there already, so he's not in his corner for this one. But that's the problem with when you have coaches at different countries and different states that you use when you're in that region, it's great to have people you can rely on. Kenny, you can always rely on when you're there, but you're not going to retain a lot of what they're giving you when it comes down to fight week.
Yeah, and I'm happy to see Walt back in action though. When he fought with Alistair in December, that was his first fight back after tragically losing his stepdaughter. So, there was a lot weighing on Walt, and I'm really glad that he just got that fight over with. I mean, and obviously Alistair Overeem is like no shame in losing to Alistair Overeem, but I think more than anything, I was just really glad to see Walt just get back to fighting. And remember, I don't know if you remember, but after that fight, it was pretty emotional with them. They remember that they were in Jacksonville, and he and Alistair, kind of had a real serious moment there after Alistair has children of his own, daughters of his own. And so I'm like getting goosebumps now just talking about it. It's really upsetting. But I guess my point is I'm just really happy to see Walt back in action now. I think having this even more time, processing things and getting over that hurdle of just getting that first fight back after everything, I think is going to be really good. And I'm just he's such a good dude. And I'm just really, really, really hoping for, win or lose, just a great showing from Walt where he goes and feels like he got to give the fight that he wanted. You know what I mean? That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, always rooting for Walt Harris. Pardon me 1 second, guys, where my fat bulldog loves to lay on the couch and snore. I got to throw my shoe at him real quick. So, Bodie, I'm doing the podcast. Jeez, my bulldog is snoring. I'm trying to pay attention, and he's throwing me off right there. I apologize for that. I'm always rooting for Walt Harris. Other than that card, I wanted to mention. I know you said you didn't get a chance to watch it, but same night as Bryant Ortega fights, they had some boxing. It was great to see some boxing back on. This one, I believe, happened at the MGM bubble. The MGM Grand has a bubble where they're going to start holding some boxing fights.
Right.
And these were two of the guys that kind of started stepping it up for the rest of the boxing world. A lot of guys are kind of holding out, wanting to do the bigger numbers with audiences and pay-per-views, and these guys stepped up. And one of my favorite fighters, and a lot of fighters, they love Loma. For these reasons, because he's so good. It's like the Matrix. His angles, his movement, his head movement, everything. It's what we try to do on pads in training all the time, and he does it in fights. Yeah. But he was going up against a very, very good opponent in Lopez, and it wasn't Loma's night. I scored this fight. The first half of the fight was majority Lopez. I gave Loma maybe the second round, and the second half of the fight was majority Loma. But I gave Lopez the last round. So I was texting with my boxing coach, Robert Sally, at the end. I said, look, this might as well just be a draw or giving it to Lopez. Lopez got the win, which he was deserving. Right. But again, when it comes to bad judging, MMA has some bad scoring now and then. But you will never, never, never get the craziness, the absurdness that you get in boxing, because one of the judges had it, I think, 1 round to Loma and every other round to Lopez, which is just absurd. It's comical. Boxing will always carry that with them, where you'll have these great fighters or great fights and an atrocious scoring, and it makes it well, why are we even doing this? Why are they even doing it? Because if you're just going to do a coin toss at the end, then what's the point of the 3-month training camp and all this stuff? It's just let's make the money. Everybody makes money, and then the winner doesn't even matter at the end when it comes to the scoring. So, again, Lopez, in my eyes, either had a draw or a win. He got the win. He was deserving of it. The scoring was horrible, but it also wasn't the most exciting fight in the world. The second half was much better than the first half. But also the night of Khabib, you said the fights are early, Karyn, so I'm kind of happy because there's another boxing fight on that night. Right. So it's going to be another double nighter where we're watching MMA early, boxing at night. It's going to be a long night of fights again this Saturday as well. Yeah,
I got to see some of it at the beginning, and I was like, wow, look at the Top Rank's bubble. I was like, they put on all of the lights. Did you see their whole thing? I was like, okay, that's I was a lot to process. Just looking at the screen, and it was red, and then there was lights flashing, and then there was just a lot going on. But yeah, I saw first couple of rounds, and then the kid got hungry, and I had to make her dinner and all that stuff. But I do know that I was following along and seeing some stuff on Twitter, and some people were like, Lopez sucks, or Lopez isn't as good as Lomo, and then people were like, well, then how did he win? You know what I mean? Because it's weird why people just, I mean, I get it, Lomachenko is the deal, but it's just kind of funny that even after losing, people aren't giving his opponent credit. It was like, well, but he beat him. So, I mean, like you said, even if you didn't agree with one of the judges' scorecards or whatever, the fact still stands that he won the fight.
Yeah, and which is surprising because the guy, it's hard not to root for him. He's got this youthful like energy about him that makes you want to kind of root for him. But you started the fight going, okay, Lopez is just, Lomo's just filling him out. He's doing this on purpose. Right. Round 2, he's still doing this on purpose. Round 3, okay, Loma needs to go now. Round 4, round 5, Loma needs to go. And then you started saying, oh, he's actually losing the fight. Right. Loma turned it up, started winning the second half, round 7, 8, 9, whatever.
Yeah.
But Lopez did his thing. Congratulations to him. Beat the #1 fighter boxer in the world. Right. What a great night. His dad set that fight up. His dad was the one that said, I see it on this day. We're gonna beat the #1 fighter in the world. We're gonna take this belt. Unified all 4 belts. He owes some thank yous to his dad.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, listen, tomorrow I will be listening in on the media stuff for this weekend. So we'll have some clips up, with Khabib and Justin, like they're, those media scrums. It's a little tricky now the way the world is. We got to do all these things on satellite and all that. But so we'll either have those up on the MMA Heat YouTube channel or at MMAHeat.com. We'll put these up as well. So just so people can get psyched for this weekend and hear from the fighters themselves. But yeah, so you can follow our producer Wade Eck on Twitter and on Instagram. For me, it's Karyn Bryant, Karyn, Bryant like Kobe. That's on Twitter. On Instagram, I'm KB Heat. And of course, we have MMA Heat everywhere. Alan, where can they find you?
Yeah, make sure and follow me as well at Alan Jouban on all my social media platforms.
Awesome. And then Wade puts these up as audio downloads at MMA.audio if you want to check that out as well. But yeah, Alan, I say it to you all the time when you're in camp before your fight, keep your hands up. For the love of God, keep your hands up and just, you got to push yourself, baby, but be careful because it's so close now. It's so close, and I just need it to happen, dude. I need it to happen.
I just need to get there healthy. That's what I need to do. I need to make that happen.
Awesome, folks. Well, thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.
Take care, guys.